song that I wrote after hearing Matt Niffen, who is a bass player around the Boston area's Project Soundscape. He really opened my ears to hear bass up in front being the melodic vehicle in a metal setting, so I wanted to try my hand at it, and Facewaves was my attempt.
That was the first single released. It's got a bunch of cool stuff happening throughout. Jacob Umansky absolutely destroying this intro. Destroying isn't a good word. He just gracefully plays it. It's so awesome.
It's got this really big open first half, and then the second half just totally like crazy balls to the wall.
Such a good song. Super fun to play. Sorta hard to remember because James wrote like all these slightly different versions of that opening pattern.
Another song where there's a lot of weird tags with like bars of 4/4 and then a bar of 2/4 there, a bar of 6/4 there. Just silly things like that to keep the prog going.
So that's pretty annoying, James.
It's really weird because the song form, there's an intro, a verse, a pre-chorus, and then a chorus, and then it's kind of just all over the place.
There's pretty much a guitar lead going through almost the whole thing. When we played this live on tour for the first time this past November, it was interesting to be on stage and see the interplay between the vocals and that lead guitar line. It was almost as if the guitar was the other vocalist for the most part. This is the only song that uses a vocoder filtered voice, which we messed around with kind of accidentally. The vocal part there is also one of my favorite Adam moments too, just like the super chill, different side of his voice.
When the guitars are just strumming during those sort of grandiose chorus spots, that gives me a little more room to breathe. So I've been adding in some neat little arpeggiations and up and downward sweeping patterns. I have a lot of fun with this one live. I'd mentioned this before, but that was such a hectic weekend that I was there. They had just sent me the parts. I'd been listening on to the songs on the plane on the way to Boston, because that was about like the first time I'd had a chance to study some of these things. The heavy section, I'm just going to jump around a lot because screw narrative, was the hardest thing for me to record. I remember trying to get that pattern with the spot and the nosedive. Not that I'm doing anything like that. What am I going to... That would not sound good. I can remember just getting stuck when we were trying to record. You know, we had 3, maybe 4 hour block of time. I remember James coming out of the control booth and trying to coach me through. I just stalled out on that spot.
Yeah, sounds good, man. You try these once.
Putting the camera right on my face. And when I doubled the guitar tapping section, immediately preceding the really heavy bit, you know, because it repeats, so I gotta get 2 takes. I gotta get 2 passes out of it. That sounded good. And I just couldn't. We signed out the, what's the word I'm looking for now? Reserved? No. Rented. We rented out the studio space to come back the next day. Because we had to do I forgot, we did the Intense re-release. So we still had some things to do the next day. So that night, I was at James's apartment, practicing the parts on his keyboard there. And then the next day, we went back and finally got it. And I'm glad we did. Because I think, you know, the added punch of the... worth it.
This really intense tapping section, I knew that because there were chugs and Sam already had his kind of melodic layer of the tapping thing, that it'd be great for like a syncopated screaming thing with the chugs and the drum part.
The breakdown section is not as complicated as it sounds. It's literally only just a bar of 4/4 and a bar of 7/8. It's groups of 3 that start on the 16th note of the 4/4 bar. So it's tied groups of 3 that go over the bar line. They end up resolving on the 7th beat of the 7/8 bar.
In the original version of this song, it actually just kept going, and one day I sent him a version of me playing the same rhythms, but with these really disgusting Acacia Strain style heavy chords.
That wasn't even a section that was written, and Sam added it in, and it just makes it explode even more. Like, it's really heavy, and then it just gets ridiculously heavy.
The fun part about the next section, the acoustic kind of clean break, the acoustic guitars that are on there are actually the ones that made it all the way from the demo on that same guitar, not the 12 string, the other one. So there's a drum fill leading into the outro of the song that wasn't originally there, and when we got into the studio, James went to get into this section. It was like really, really cool, and then just out of nowhere we heard this. I think it's hilarious because it's kind of the most Mike Portnoy-esque fill on the record. He will never admit to that, but...
That's my Mike Portnoy fill. This is another drum fill that I will play the same way all the time because I like it. 2 in this song, actually. The... That one, play that one every time. So I'll play the Mike Portnoy fill the same way every time. Because it works.
I also think this track has such a good ending. We could have ended the album. The album could have ended. The album is its own entity after this track. It's that big. It feels like such a good stopping point. 7 tracks in. For a lot of albums, that would be enough. We got Lullaby and Tornado still. And it's like those are bonus tracks. Just a pile of cherries on top. It's amazing.
He has a crazy solo at the end too. Probably my favorite solo on the record.
Originally, we just had that same guitar like lead, that 16th note line, just going through all the way to the end. And I wanted to cap it off with some really like emotional lead that just like lets it literally end on a high note. So I was super happy with how that came out. That's like one of my favorite things to play live. Probably my favorite thing to play live, actually.
The first single we put out with Adam on it, and we thought it was a great representation of where the band is headed. It's got the jam parts, it's got the breakdown parts, it's got the quiet soft parts, and it's got epic sections as well, the guitar solo at the end. It's not super shreddy. I feel like it could substitute it in for like that opening scene in Lion King. If there was ever like a metal re-release of Lion King, that'd be pretty cool.
Facewaves.
Just got you on the point. 6.
We're just gonna sit here until the album's out.